If you've ever felt lost in a mess of notes, highlights, and information that never seems to come together, you're not alone. Many of us start with good intentions, but end up overwhelmed by complicated apps and scattered ideas. We collect bits and pieces, but struggle to turn them into real understanding or creativity. This book, Zettelkasten for Beginners, is here to show you a better way. You don't need to be a tech expert or a productivity fanatic. What you need is a simple, reliable method that actually helps you think, remember, and create. The Zettelkasten system is not about strict rules or the perfect app. It's about building your own support system for learning and making sense of the world. You'll learn how to write clear, focused notes, one idea at a time, so you can easily find and use them later. You'll see how connecting your notes can help you discover patterns, solve problems, and spark new ideas. Most importantly, you'll learn how to make your notes work for you, instead of just piling up unused. You'll find easy steps to start, tips for building helpful habits, and solutions for the most common problems people face when trying to stay organized. There's no need to wait for the right time or the right tool. You can begin right now with whatever you have. By the end of this book, you'll know how to turn information into real knowledge and notes into building blocks for your own projects and ideas. Whether you're a student, a professional, or just someone who loves to learn, this system is for you. Let's get started and turn your notes into something that grows with you for a lifetime. Chapter 1, Note Chaos. Everything you know about learning might be a total lie. You spend hours consuming content. You read the books. You listen to the podcasts at 2x speed. You highlight the insightful paragraphs and save the PDFs to a folder you promise yourself you will organize next weekend. You feel productive. You feel like you are growing. But let's look at the cold, hard reality. If I asked you to explain the core argument of the book you read last month, could you do it? Could you articulate it clearly right now without fumbling for your phone or opening a dozen browser tabs? For most people, the answer is a painful silence. This is the great illusion of the information age. We confuse consumption with understanding. We confuse hoarding files with building knowledge. You are not building a library of wisdom. You are building a graveyard of good intentions. Every time you click save or highlight a sentence without a system to process it, you are adding to a pile of mental debt that quietly erodes your confidence. You feel like you are working hard, but you are spinning your wheels in mud. You are in the right place to stop this madness. This is not a book about how to color code your folders or which app has the prettiest interface. This is a rescue mission for your intellect. We are going to dismantle the habits that keep you overwhelmed and replace them with a machine, a relentless compounding engine called the Zettelkasten. By the end of this chapter, you will understand exactly why your current approach is broken, and you will see the blueprint for a system that turns you from a frantic hoarder into a deliberate architect of ideas. The Hoarder's Dilemma. Let's name the enemy. It is not a lack of discipline. It is not that you aren't smart enough. The enemy is cognitive load. Your brain is a high-performance processor, but it has a terrible limitation. It can only juggle a tiny number of ideas at once. When you try to hold a conversation, remember a fact from an article, and structure an argument all at the same time, your processor jams. Most people try to solve this by taking notes. But look at your notes. They are a chaotic mess. You have scribbles in a physical notebook, screenshots in your camera roll, bookmarks in your browser, and documents scattered across 3 different cloud services. This does not reduce your cognitive load. It increases it. Every time you want to think, you first have to play archaeologist. You have to dig through the rubble of your own digital life just to find the raw materials. This chaos has a hidden cost that is bankrupting your potential. Think about the time you lose rereading the same material because you didn't capture it effectively the first time. Think about the projects that stall because you can't find the research you know you did 2 months ago. You are paying a tax on every single thought. Worse than the lost time is the lost confidence. When you can't find what you know, you start to doubt that you know anything at all. You enter a meeting or an exam, and you feel a creeping sense of fraudulence. You know you read about this topic, but the details are gone, dissolved into the fog. This is the collector's fallacy. The false belief that collecting information is the same as acquiring it. It is not. A library with no index is just a room full of paper. A hard drive full of PDFs is just a waste of storage space. Until you have a system to retrieve and connect those ideas, you know nothing. The silent killer of your ambition. If you do not fix this, the trajectory is grim. You will continue the loop of rereading without progress. You will buy more courses, read more books, and watch more tutorials, chasing the dopamine hit of new information. But because you have no way to retain and compound that information, 90% of it will evaporate within weeks. You are pouring water into a bucket full of holes. This leads to project paralysis. You have ambitious goals. You want to write a thesis, launch a business, or create a body of work. But every time you sit down to start, you are paralyzed by the sheer disorganization of your own thoughts. You stare at a blinking cursor, overwhelmed by the effort it would take to reconstruct your research. So you abandon the draft. You quit the project. You tell yourself you will come back to it when you are more organized. But that day never comes. Over time, this becomes an identity issue. You start to tell yourself a story. Maybe I'm just not that smart. Maybe I'm just not a finisher. You lower your standards. You choose smaller, easier challenges because you don't trust your ability to handle complex ones. You accept a life of low-leverage work where you are paid for your time rather than your unique insights. This is the tragedy of the disorganized mind. You have the raw intelligence, but you lack the infrastructure to deploy it. Building a compounding interest account for your brain. Now, imagine a different reality. Imagine a system where every minute you spend learning pays you back for the rest of your life. This is the promise of the Zettelkasten. The Zettelkasten is not just a note-taking method. It is a way of externalizing your cognition. It pushes the heavy lifting of storage and retrieval out of your fallible biological brain and into a reliable external structure. When you do this, something magical happens. Your mind is free. You stop using your brain to store information and start using it to reason, connect, and create. Think of knowledge like money. In your current chaotic state, you are stuffing cash under the mattress. It doesn't grow. It actually loses value as you forget it. The Zettelkasten is an investment account. When you put an idea into this system, it doesn't just sit there. It connects to other ideas. It gains context. It compounds. A year from now, you could be the person who walks into a room and dominates the discussion. Not because you are louder, but because you have the receipts. While others are grasping for vague memories, you have precise arguments, examples, and references at your fingertips. You become the clear thinker. You build a reputation for insight because your system surfaces connections that other people miss. This is lifelong leverage. You stop starting from zero on every project. You stand on the shoulders of your past self. The 4 pillars of intellectual leverage. We are going to build this machine together. We are not going to do it by downloading a magical app that solves your problems for you. We're going to do it by installing a new operating system for your mind. This book is structured to walk you through the 4 critical phases of the Zettelkasten method. First, we must address the input. You need to stop dumping raw data into your life and start capturing atomic notes. This is the foundation. You cannot build a skyscraper out of mud. You need bricks. We will teach you how to slice complex information into small, sharp, self-contained units that can be moved, mixed, and reused. This is the antidote to the wall of text. Second, we move to the permanent note. This is where the alchemy happens. This is where you translate what others have said into what you understand. We will show you how to distill fleeting thoughts into durable insights that serve as your personal textbook of understanding. This is the difference between a parrot and a philosopher. Third, we unlock the power of smart linking and emergent structure. A box of index cards is just a box. A network of linked ideas is a second brain. We will move beyond the rigid prison of folders and hierarchies. You will learn to link notes so that they form clusters and trails. You will see how structure emerges naturally from your thinking, rather than being forced down from the top. Finally, we turn the system into an idea engine. A Zettelkasten is not a museum, it is a factory. We will show you how to use your note clusters to generate outlines, solve problems, and produce work. You will experience the shift from staring at a blank page to simply assembling the pieces you have already created. The sequence of success. You might be tempted to skip ahead. You might want to jump straight to the complex linking strategies or the output tactics. Do not do this. The order of this book is not random. It mirrors the way human thinking actually works. You cannot distill an insight, permanent note, if you haven't captured the raw material, atomic note. You cannot link ideas, smart linking, if those ideas are vague or bloated. And you certainly cannot produce high-level output, idea engine, if your underlying network is fragile. Each step builds on the previous one. Winners respect this process. Losers look for shortcuts. The loser wants the hack that makes them a genius overnight. They skip the fundamentals, download a complex template they don't understand, and then quit 2 weeks later when it feels like too much work. The winner understands that compounding takes time. They are willing to do the unglamorous work of capturing and clarifying because they know that 6 months from now, the payoff will be exponential. Decide who you are going to be. We are at a decision point. You can treat this book as just another piece of entertainment, something you read, nod along to, and then forget as you go back to your chaotic, scattered life. You can continue to believe that if you just find the right app, everything will click. You can continue to hide behind endless reading, using research as a shield to protect you from the scary work of actually producing something. Or you can decide to be a professional. The winner mindset treats notes as tools for thinking, not trophies of consumption. The winner accepts that the beginning will be messy. They take responsibility. If they can't find an idea, they don't blame their memory. They fix their system. They understand that every single note they write is a vote for the person they want to become. You are going to build a Zettelkasten. You are going to commit to this for the next 30 days. You are going to stop being a passive consumer and start being a deliberate builder of knowledge. It will not be easy at first. It requires you to think, which is harder than just highlighting. But the alternative is to stay exactly where you are, overwhelmed, anxious, and underleveraged. The choice is yours. But if you are still reading, I suspect you have already made up your mind. You are done with the chaos. You are ready to build a structure that can hold the weight of your potential. But you cannot build that structure with the messy, sprawling notes you are used to writing. You cannot build a network out of incoherent ramblings. You need a new building block. You need to learn the art of the small, the precise, and the modular. You need to understand the secret of the single unit that makes the entire system possible. It's time to discover the power of the atomic note. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to Grow to the Top and activate notifications to receive more self-improvement tips that will supercharge your growth. And make sure to give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. It really helps the channel grow. Thank you for your support. Chapter 2, Atomic Notes. Why do you hate reading your own notes? Be honest. You open that document from a meeting 3 months ago, or that notebook from the conference last year, and what do you see? You see a wall of text. You see a sprawling, disconnected stream of consciousness. You see a graveyard of half-baked thoughts mixed with verbatim quotes and random tasks. You look at it, you feel a wave of exhaustion, and you close it. You tell yourself you will process it later, but you never do. This is the tragedy of the standard note-taking approach. You are treating your notes like a storage unit where you dump everything in boxes without labeling them. When you need to find something, you have to unpack the entire room. It is inefficient, it is demoralizing, and it kills your creativity before you even begin. You are about to change that. You are going to stop dumping and start building. You're going to learn the secret weapon of the most prolific thinkers in history. It is not a complex software feature. It is a simple, fundamental shift in how you capture information. It is called the atomic note. The Lego bricks of thought. Imagine you are trying to build a castle. If someone dumps a massive fused lump of melted plastic in front of you, you can't build anything. That lump is your current note-taking style, a long summary of a book, a transcript of a lecture, a highlight reel of a podcast. It is one big, unmanageable chunk. You can't separate the ideas. You can't rearrange them. You are stuck with the structure the original author gave you. Now imagine someone hands you a bucket of Lego bricks. Each brick is small. Each brick is distinct. Each brick can be connected to any other brick in the bucket. Suddenly, you are not limited to the shape of the original set. You can build a castle, a spaceship, or a bridge. You have infinite possibilities because you have modularity. Atomic notes are your Lego bricks. The core philosophy here is conceptual chunking. Your brain does not process information in long, flowing narratives. It processes it in distinct units of meaning. When you force your brain to deal with a 10-page document covering 15 different topics, you are overloading your cognitive RAM. You create friction. But when you break those 15 topics into 15 separate small notes, you reduce the cognitive load to almost zero. This modularity is the key to scaling your thinking. If you write a note that is strictly about the impact of sleep on memory, you can use that note in an article about health, a project about productivity, or a letter to a friend. It is a reusable component. But if that idea is buried inside a 2,000-word summary of a biology textbook, it is trapped. You will never find it, and you will certainly never reuse it. By atomizing your notes, you are liberating your ideas. You are making them portable. You are making sure that the work you do today can be used by your future self 10 years from now, in a context you haven't even imagined yet. One idea, one container. So, what exactly is an atomic note? The definition is strict but liberating. One idea, one note. That is it. It is not a chapter. It is not a list of bullet points covering 3 different arguments. It is a single unit of understanding. An atomic note usually fits in 50 to 150 words. It is short enough to be read in seconds, but long enough to contain a complete thought. This is a crucial distinction. We are not talking about a vague sentence fragment like sleep is good. That is useless. We are talking about a self-contained explanation. If you were to lose the source of the note should still make sense on its own. It should explain the concept clearly, in plain language. Think of it as a container for one specific insight. If you are reading a book and the author discusses the economic history of Rome, the military tactics of Caesar, and the architecture of the Colosseum, you do not write one note called Rome. You write 3 notes. One about the economy, one about the tactics, one about the architecture. This specificity is non-negotiable. When you restrict a note to a single idea, you force yourself to be clear. You can't hide behind fluff. You can't just copy and paste a paragraph and hope you understand it later. You have to synthesize it. You have to decide where the boundaries of the idea are. Context still matters, but it must be minimal. You are not writing a history of the world in every note. You include just enough context to understand why the idea matters. You add a simple reference line at the bottom, from, author title, so you can trace it back if needed. You might add a single sentence of commentary anchoring the note to your current project. But the star of the show is the idea itself, stripped of the noise, ready to be used. The trap of length and complexity. There is a voice in your head right now raising objections. It is the voice of your ego, and it is wrong. The first myth this voice whispers is that long notes are more serious. We have been conditioned by school to believe that volume equals value. If we write a 10-page summary, we feel like we have done real work. If we write a paragraph, we feel like we are slacking. This is a lie. Length is not depth. Length is often just a mask for a lack of understanding. It takes more intelligence to distill a complex topic into a crystal-clear paragraph than it does to transcribe a lecture verbatim. Long notes are rarely reread because they are exhausting. They are rarely reused because they are rigid. By breaking ideas down, you are not dumbing them down. You are sharpening them. The second myth is that splitting notes destroys context. You worry that if you separate the economic history of Rome from the military tactics, you will lose the connection between them. You won't. This is what links are for, and we will get to those soon. But even without links, a clear, specific note is infinitely more valuable than a muddled blob. Meaningful connections happen between clear ideas, not within a confused mess. The third myth is the most dangerous. This takes too long. You think it is faster to just copy-paste a highlight or type out a quick summary of a whole chapter. In the moment, yes, it is faster, but you are borrowing time from your future self at a high interest rate. When you copy-paste without thinking, you are not learning. You are just moving text from one screen to another. Later, when you need that information, you will have to reread, reanalyze, and relearn it. Writing atomic notes forces you to do the thinking now, once and for all. It slows you down during the capture phase, so you can move at light speed during the creation phase. It is an investment. You are paying the cognitive cost up front so that your future self can fly. The 3-step atomic formula. You are ready to start. You don't need a degree in library science. You just need a simple, repeatable formula. Here is how you build an atomic note in 3 steps. Step 1 is capture. You are reading a book, watching a video, or just walking down the street and something clicks. You find an idea that resonates. Stop. Don't just highlight it. Isolate it. Identify the single core concept. What is the one thing here that matters? Step 2 is explain. This is the most important step. You must rewrite the idea in your own words. Do not look at the source material while you do this. If you can't explain it without looking, you don't understand it. Write a short paragraph, maybe 2. Imagine you are explaining it to a friend who is smart but doesn't know the context. Use plain English. Avoid jargon unless you define it. This translation process, from the author's words to your words, is where the knowledge embeds itself in your brain. Step 3 is contextualize. Add the source information at the bottom. Then, add a why. Why did you capture this? Does it support an argument you are building? Does it contradict something you used to believe? This tiny tag of relevance ensures the note isn't just a fact floating in space. It is a tool ready for a specific job. Here is a pro tip. Use questions as titles. Instead of titling a note, Cognitive Load, title it, Why Does Too Much Information Paralyze Decision-Making? When the title is a question, the content of the note becomes the answer. This forces clarity. It makes the note easier to scan later. When you are looking for an answer to a problem, your notes will literally speak to you. Try this exercise today. Take a chapter of a book you are reading. List the 3 or 4 key claims the author makes. Don't summarize the narrative. Just extract the claims. Turn each claim into its own atomic note. Explain it, source it, and title it with a question. You will instantly see how much more manageable the information becomes. Writing for your future self. When you write these notes, you need to adopt a specific persona. You are not writing for a teacher. You are not writing for a publisher. You are writing for a version of yourself 6 months from now who has completely forgotten that you ever read this book. This future version of you is busy. They are impatient. They do not have time to decode cryptic abbreviations or vague sentences. If they open a note and it says key factor of variance, they will have no idea what that means. They will delete it. You need to be kind to your future self. Write in full sentences. Be conversational. Use metaphors. If an idea reminds you of a leaky bucket, write that down. Metaphors are the hooks that memory hangs on. Use constraints to keep yourself honest. Limit yourself to a maximum word count, perhaps 150 words. Constraints breed creativity. If you find yourself writing a 500-word essay, stop. You have likely combined 3 different ideas into one note. Scan the text. Ask yourself, could this be 2 notes? If the answer is yes, split it. It is always better to have 3 clear small notes than 1 muddy large one. Also, capture the emotion. If an idea makes you angry, write that down. If it confuses you, note the confusion. I don't understand how this applies to X. That friction is valuable. It is a signal that there is a gap in your knowledge, and that gap is a prime target for your next investigation. from hoarder to architect. If you commit to this, the shift in your life will be palpable. You will move from a good outcome to a best outcome. In the good outcome, you stop the mindless dumping. You no longer have documents filled with thousands of words of copy-pasted text that you never look at. You start creating small, clear notes. You can summarize a complex source in a handful of crisp cards rather than a wall of text. You feel lighter. In the excellent outcome, you start thinking in atomic units. You instinctively break conversations and lectures into parts. You hear a speech, and your brain automatically filters out the fluff and isolates the three core arguments. You can deconstruct complex material into 10 or 20 crisp notes quickly. You start recombining these notes to draft outlines with minimal friction. In the best outcome, atomic notes become your default mental model. You see the world as interlocking ideas, not vague impressions. You can build long, complex arguments from simple notes with high confidence because you know every brick in the wall is solid. Your Zettelkasten grows as a clean, modular map of your evolving thinking. You are no longer a hoarder of information. You are an architect of knowledge. When the system jams, you will mess this up at first. That is normal. The most common problem is that your notes will still feel too big. You will try to squeeze a definition, an example, and a counterargument all into one note. The fix is simple. Force a core sentence summary. If you can't summarize the note in one sentence, it is too big. Split it. You might also find that your notes feel orphaned. You write them, but weeks later you don't know where they came from. This is why the source line is mandatory. Never skip it. Even a quick from Twitter thread by @user is better than nothing. Finally, you might get stuck over-editing. You treat each note like a published work of art. You spend 20 minutes polishing one paragraph. Stop. This is a tool, not a monument. Accept roughness. Aim for clarity, not perfection. Set a timer. Give yourself 3 minutes per note. If it's not perfect, that's fine. A rough atomic note is infinitely better than a perfect idea that you never wrote down. You now have the bricks. You know how to capture ideas in a way that makes them modular, reusable, and clear. You are building a stockpile of insight. But a pile of bricks, no matter how high quality, is not a house. It is just a pile. To turn these raw materials into a structure that can weather the storm and stand the test of time, you need to understand the difference between a brick you just found and a brick you have tested, fired, and committed to keeping forever. You need to learn the art of the permanent note and the strict criteria that determine what gets to stay in your system and what gets thrown away. Chapter 3, Permanent Notes. Open your digital reading app right now. Go to the Highlights section. Scroll through the hundreds, maybe thousands of yellow bars you have dragged across the screen over the last few years. Now pick one at random. Do you remember highlighting it? Do you remember why it mattered? Can you explain right now how that highlighted sentence changed your worldview or influenced a decision you made last week? If you are like most people, the answer is a frustrating no. You are looking at a graveyard. This is the highlight graveyard, where good intentions go to die. You felt productive when you highlighted that sentence. You felt a spark of recognition. But because you didn't do anything with it, that spark faded. You didn't capture knowledge, you just painted some text yellow. This chapter is about resurrection. It is about taking those fleeting moments of inspiration and cementing them into something that lasts. We are going to move beyond the shallow act of collecting other people's words and start the deep work of forging your own. We are going to build the backbone of your Zettelkasten. We are going to talk about the permanent note. The 3 layers of intelligence. To understand why your current system is failing, you need to understand that not all notes are created equal. In the chaos of a standard notebook, everything looks the same. A phone number, a book quote, a meeting action item, and a life-changing epiphany are all scribbled on the same page. This flatness is a disaster for your brain. To build a functioning second brain, we must distinguish between 3 distinct types of material. First, you have reference notes. These are the raw materials. They are facts, data points, bibliographic details, or direct quotes. They are the what. Reference notes are necessary, but they are not knowledge. They are just information. If your system is nothing but reference notes, you are just a librarian for someone else's thoughts. Second, you have literature notes. These are your summaries of what you read or heard. When you write down, the author argues that X leads to Y, that is a literature note. It is useful for context, but it is still passive. You are reporting on the world, not engaging with it. Then, at the top of the pyramid, you have the permanent note. This is the game changer. A permanent note is not a quote. It is not a summary. It is a distilled insight, written entirely in your own words that connects to what you already know. It is the shift from "the author said" to "for me, this means." Think of your Zettelkasten as a personal textbook that you are writing for your future self. Reference notes are the bibliography. Literature notes are the footnotes. But permanent notes are the main text. They are the declarations of your understanding. If you strip away everything else, the permanent notes should stand alone as a coherent body of wisdom that belongs to you. Stop renting your opinions. The reason the highlight graveyard exists is that highlighting is an act of renting. You are borrowing the author's clarity for a moment. You feel smart because you understood the sentence while you read it, but you didn't do the work to own it. You didn't wrestle with it. The thinking and writing loop is the mechanism of ownership. You do not truly understand an idea until you can restate it in your own plain language. If you try to write a permanent note and find yourself staring at the screen, unable to form a sentence without looking back at the source, you have exposed a gap in your understanding. That struggle is good. That struggle is where learning happens. When you successfully write a permanent note, you are cementing that idea in your long-term memory. You are translating it from external input to internal wisdom. This is why we call them permanent. They are not permanent because you can never change them. You will refine them constantly. They are permanent because they are now part of your intellectual infrastructure. They are the structural beams of your mind. Without these beams, your knowledge is a pile of lumber. You might have a lot of wood, but you can't live in it. You can't build a career or a philosophy out of a pile of unorganized lumber. You need a structure. Permanent notes are that structure. They are the reliable starting points for every article you write, every problem you solve, and every decision you make. The perfectionism trap. As you prepare to write your first permanent note, you will face a new enemy. It is the whisper of perfectionism, and it manifests in 3 dangerous myths. The first myth is the hoarding instinct. I must save everything. You read a book and feel the urge to turn every paragraph into a permanent note. You are afraid that if you don't capture it all, you will miss something crucial. This is a trap. If you try to save everything, you end up with a diluted system full of noise. You must choose deliberate scarcity. Your Zettelkasten is not an archive of everything you have ever seen. It is a curated collection of what actually matters to you. The second myth is that permanent notes must be long and impressive. You feel like you need to write a mini essay for it to count. You use big words and complex sentences to sound smart. But remember the lesson of the atomic note. Clarity is king. A sharp, punchy paragraph that gets straight to the point is infinitely more valuable than a rambling page of academic fluff. Give yourself permission to be brief. If the insight is simple, let the note be simple. The third myth is that only profound, earth-shattering ideas deserve to be permanent. You wait for a lightning bolt of genius, but genius is rarely a lightning bolt. It is usually a slow accumulation of small truths. A practical insight about how you work best, or a small observation about human behavior, is often more valuable than a grand philosophical theory. Do not despise the small ideas. They are the ones that compound. The promotion protocol. So how do you actually create these things? You need a pipeline. You need a filter that separates the noise from the signal. It starts with your raw input, your highlights and fleeting scribbles. From there, you create atomic notes, as we discussed in the previous chapter. But not every atomic note deserves to be promoted to permanent status. You have to audit them. You have to look at your atomic notes and ask, Does this really matter? Will this be useful in 6 months? When you decide an idea is a keeper, you upgrade it. You open a new note and follow a simple template. First, the title. Do not use a vague label like productivity. Use a specific statement or a question that captures the core claim, such as multitasking reduces IQ scores. The title should tell you exactly what the note is about before you even open it. Next, the body. This is where you write your explanation. It should be 150 to 300 words. Write it as if you are explaining it to a friend. Use your own voice. If the idea came from a book, acknowledge the source, but do not let the source dominate the text. This is your room. The author is just a guest. Finally, the links. A permanent note cannot float in the void. It must be anchored. We will go deep into linking in the next chapter, but for now, the rule is simple. You must connect this new note to at least one existing note. Ask yourself, what does this relate to? If you can't find a connection, ask yourself why you are keeping it. Try this exercise. Take a chapter you just read. You probably have 10 different atomic notes from it. Look at them. Which 3 are the most important? Which 3 change how you think? Take those 3 and rewrite them as permanent notes. Discard the rest. It feels painful to throw things away, but pruning is how you keep the tree healthy. The so what filter. The difference between a literature note, summary, and a permanent note, insight, often comes down to 2 magic phrases. The first phrase is so what? You have summarized an interesting fact. Great. So what? Why does it matter? Why should you care? If you can't answer that, the note isn't finished. The answer to so what is usually the actual insight. The second phrase is, for me, this means. This forces you to contextualize the information. If you are reading about the history of the printing press, a literature note might say, Gutenberg invented the press in 1440. A permanent note using this filter might say, for me, the printing press illustrates how technology democratizes information and destroys gatekeepers, which parallels the rise of the internet. See the difference? One is a fact. The other is a tool for thinking. You should also look for tension. We have a natural bias to collect ideas that agree with us, but the most valuable permanent notes are often the ones that fight with each other. If you find an idea that contradicts something you already believe, capture that tension. Write a note that says, this concept challenges my view on X because. These conflicts are the friction points where new ideas are born. Limit yourself. Set a target of creating just 1 to 5 permanent notes per reading session. This constraint forces you to focus on quality. It stops you from turning note-taking into a mechanical grind of copy-pasting. If you only have energy to write 1 good permanent note, write 1. 1 diamond is worth more than a bucket of gravel. Building your intellectual canon. If you stick to this protocol, the results will accumulate quietly but powerfully. In the good outcome, you will build a backbone of key insights. You will stop feeling the anxiety of forgetting because you know the core truths are safe. You will feel less urge to highlight everything because you trust your ability to discern what is worth keeping. In the excellent outcome, your permanent notes will start to drive your work. You will sit down to write an article or prepare a presentation, and you won't be starting from a blank page. You will be assembling pieces you have already refined. You will experience the joy of writing as a process of assembly rather than a process of anxiety. In the best outcome, you build a personal knowledge canon. You will have a body of work that represents your best thinking on the subjects that define you. When people ask you what you think about a topic, you won't give a vague, off-the-cuff answer. You will draw from a deep well of articulated thought. You will be consistent. You will be clear. You will be a person of substance. Don't build a junkyard. However, there are pitfalls. The most common is the bloated collection. You get lazy with your filter. You start promoting everything. Your system fills up with interesting facts that have no utility. To fix this, apply the time filter. Ask, will this matter in a year? If the answer is no, let it go. Another trap is the paraphrased quote. You write a permanent note, but it's really just the author's words shuffled around. You haven't added any value. You haven't added the "for me, this means" section. If your note doesn't contain your voice, it isn't permanent. It's just a photocopy. The final pitfall is the lonely note. You write a brilliant insight, but you don't link it to anything. It sits there, isolated and alone. Over time, it drifts away into the dark waters of your hard drive, never to be seen again. A permanent note without connections is like a neuron without synapses. It might be alive, but it isn't thinking. You have learned how to capture the bricks, atomic notes, and how to refine them into structural beams, permanent notes. You are building a stockpile of high-quality, personalized knowledge. But a pile of steel beams is not a skyscraper. A collection of separate insights, no matter how profound, is not a second brain. For your system to truly come alive, for it to surprise you, for it to generate ideas you didn't even know you had, these notes need to stop living in isolation. They need to start talking to each other. They need to form a web. It is time to leave the world of lists and enter the world of networks. It is time to learn the dark art of the link. Chapter 4: Smart Linking. Imagine a library where every book is glued to the shelf. You can take a book down and read it, but you have to put it back in the exact same spot. If you find a book on architecture that references a book on history, you cannot put them next to each other. You have to walk across the building, find the history section, read that book, and then put it back. You cannot create a pile of related books on a table. You cannot rearrange the shelves. The structure is rigid, frozen, and absolute. This is how most people organize their digital lives. They use folders. They treat ideas like physical objects that can only exist in one place at a time. If you have a note about habit formation, do you put it in the psychology folder or the productivity folder? You agonize over the decision. You pick one, and you effectively hide the note from the other context forever. You are building a prison for your ideas. It is time to break the walls down. We are going to move from the rigid world of folders to the fluid world of networks. We are going to turn your static archive into a living web of conversations. This is the art of smart linking. From storage to synapse, you need to understand a fundamental truth about your brain. It does not use folders. You do not have a work lobe and a family lobe. Your brain works by association. You smell fresh coffee, and suddenly you are remembering a morning in Paris 5 years ago, which reminds you of a friend you haven't called, which reminds you to check your email. Your mind jumps across vast distances in milliseconds because it follows a web of connections. When you use folders, you are fighting your brain's natural architecture. You are forcing a nonlinear mind into a linear system. This is why you feel friction. This is why you forget things. You are trying to file the world away, but the world doesn't fit in a file cabinet. Smart linking is the act of mirroring your brain's structure in your Zettelkasten. When you link note A to note B, you are creating a digital synapse. You are telling your system that these two ideas, though they might be separated by time or topic, are related. This shifts your system from storage to intelligence. A box of index cards is just a box. But a box of index cards where every card points to related cards is a network. When you increase the connection density, the number of links between notes, you create a system that can surprise you. You start to see patterns you didn't put there consciously. You start to see that your reading on biology is actually solving a problem in your business strategy. This is the shift from "I have notes" to "my notes think with me." The vocabulary of connection. A link is not just a hyperlink. It is not just a blue underline that takes you from one place to another. In a Zettelkasten, a link is a relationship. It is a bridge that allows traffic to flow between islands of thought. But not all bridges are the same. To master this, you need to understand the different types of connections you are building. First, you have the direct link. This is the most common. Note A supports note B. You read a theory about compound interest, and you link it to a note about habit formation because they operate on the same mathematical principle. This link says, if you are interested in this, you need to know that. Second, and more importantly, you have the contrast link. Most people only link things that agree. This is a mistake. You want to link ideas that fight. If Note A says capitalism promotes innovation and Note B says capitalism stifles creativity, you must link them. You create a tension in your system. This tension is where insight comes from. When you revisit these notes later, you won't just see a list of facts, you will see a debate. You will be forced to think, to synthesize, to resolve the conflict. Third, you have the context link. This is the see also connection. These notes aren't directly arguing or supporting, but they are in the same neighborhood. They provide background. They set the stage. As you build these links, you will notice something magical happening. Notes will start to cluster. You will see a dense knot of connections forming around a specific topic. This is not something you planned. It is something that happened. When this occurs, you create a hub note, a special note that acts as a map for that cluster. We will discuss this more later, but for now, just know that links are the mechanism that allows these clusters to reveal themselves. The perfectionist's prison. Before you start clicking and dragging, we need to address the myths that will paralyze you. The biggest one is the belief that you need a perfect taxonomy before you start. You think you need to map out the entire universe of knowledge before you can link two notes together. This is perfectionism disguised as planning. It is a trap. You cannot know the shape of your knowledge before you acquire it. Structure emerges from practice, not from theory. You do not need a master plan. You just need to connect one thing to another thing. The structure will take care of itself. The second myth is the fear of the wrong link. You worry that if you link a recipe to a chemistry note, you are messing up the system. You are not. There are no wrong links, only weak ones. And weak links are fine. They might lead nowhere, or they might lead to the most original idea of your career. History is filled with breakthroughs that came from connecting two things that didn't belong together. Give yourself permission to be messy. Give yourself permission to experiment. The third myth is the completionist fallacy. You think that if you don't link every possible related note, the system is broken. This leads to paralysis. You spend hours searching for connections instead of thinking. Stop it. A few meaningful links are infinitely better than 100 shallow ones. You are building a path through the forest, not paving the entire planet. The 3 questions protocol. So, how do you actually do this without spending all day managing links? You make it part of the writing process. Whenever you create a permanent note, you pause for 30 seconds and ask yourself 3 specific questions. Question 1. Where have I seen this idea before? Scan your memory. Does this remind you of a book you read last year? A project you are working on? A conversation you had? Search your Zettelkasten for keywords related to that memory. If you find a relevant note, link it. This anchors the new information to your existing knowledge base. Question 2. What does this contradict? This is the power move. Actively look for notes that disagree with your new insight. If you are writing a note about the benefits of a vegan diet, search for your notes on the benefits of animal protein. Link them. Create the argument. This prevents your system from becoming an echo chamber of your own biases. Question 3. Where could this be useful later? This is forward thinking. Instead of asking where the note comes from, ask where it is going. Is this useful for your thesis? Is it useful for that novel you want to write? Link the note to your project plans or your open questions. You should also utilize the power of the backlink. Most digital tools today show you not just what a note points to, but what points at the note. This is crucial. It allows you to navigate backward up the stream of thought. It turns your system from a tree, which only branches out, into a web, which connects everywhere. The golden rule of context. Here is the most important technical tip I can give you. Never leave a link naked. If you just put a blue hyperlink at the bottom of a note that says, "See also, note 452, you are being rude to your future self." 6 months from now, you will click that link and wonder, why on earth did I connect these two things? You will have to reread both notes to figure out the relationship. That is friction. Always add a link reason. It doesn't have to be an essay. A few words will do. Contradicted by, note 452. supports the argument in Note 101. Example of this principle, Note 33. These tiny breadcrumbs of context change everything. They allow you to surf your notes at high speed. You can look at a note and instantly see the web of relationships surrounding it without having to open every single link. You are encoding the logic of the connection, not just the connection itself. Also, link while you write. Do not save linking for a maintenance day at the end of the week. You won't do it. Linking is a form of thinking. It is the moment you decide how a new piece of information fits into your world. If you defer it, you lose the nuance. Make it a reflex. Write the note, find the connection, make the link, move on. The emergence of the insight engine. If you commit to smart linking, you will move through 3 stages of evolution. In the good outcome, every note has a home. You no longer have orphaned notes floating in the void. You can find things not just by searching for keywords, but by following trails. If you forget the specific term for a concept, you can find it by navigating from a related concept. Your system feels connected. In the excellent outcome, ideas form visible clusters. You start to see that you have 50 notes, all circling the concept of resilience. You didn't plan to become an expert on resilience, but your notes are telling you that this is a major theme in your thinking. You can now create a hub note for resilience, organize those links, and suddenly you have the outline for a book or a workshop. In the best outcome, you achieve the emergent insight engine. This is when the system starts to give back more than you put in. You follow a link trail from architecture to biology to economics, and suddenly you see a unified theory of how complex systems fail. You didn't read this theory in a book. You synthesized it because your system allowed you to collide ideas that no one else is connecting. You are no longer just a collector of knowledge. You are a generator of new knowledge. When the web becomes a trap. However, you must be vigilant. There is a dark side to linking. The first pitfall is link overwhelm. You get link happy. You link every noun in a note to every other note that contains that noun. You end up with a text that looks like a Wikipedia page gone wrong, blue text everywhere. This is noise. If everything is linked, nothing is linked. You must be ruthless. Only link when there is a meaningful relationship. Prune the weak links. Keep the signal clear. The second pitfall is the island archipelago. You get lazy. You write great notes, but you forget to link them. You end up with thousands of brilliant, isolated insights. This is a tragedy. An unlinked note is a lost note. To fix this, add a simple item to your checklist. Link at least once. Do not close the note until you have connected it to something, anything. The final pitfall is the messy hub. You create a hub note for a topic, and you just dump hundreds of links into it without organization. It becomes a junk drawer. A hub note needs structure. It needs a summary. It needs sections. If a hub gets too big, split it. Don't let your maps become as chaotic as the territory they are supposed to guide you through. You have learned to capture atomic ideas. You have learned to distill them into permanent insights. And now, you have learned to weave them into a network that mirrors the complexity of your own mind. You have built a brain. But a brain is not a static thing. It grows, it changes, and as it grows, the question of organization becomes critical. You might be tempted to go back to your old ways, to start building folders and rigid hierarchies to contain this expanding web. You must resist that urge. You must learn to trust a different kind of order. An order that looks like chaos to the uninitiated, but is actually the secret to infinite scalability. You are ready to learn about the structure that builds itself. Chapter 5, Emergent Structure. Stop trying to play God with your notes. There is a specific kind of paralysis that hits smart people when they start a knowledge management system. You sit down, stare at a blank screen, and think, I need to set this up perfectly. You start creating folders. You make a folder for work, then subfolders for projects, admin, and reference. Then you go to personal and add finances, hobbies, and travel. You spend 3 hours designing a beautiful, symmetrical hierarchy of empty folders. You feel incredibly productive. You have built a palace. But you haven't written a single note. And the moment you actually try to use this palace, it turns into a prison. You write a note about the psychology of negotiation. Does that go in work, skills, or personal psychology, or reference, books? You hesitate. You feel friction. You make a choice, but deep down you worry it's the wrong one. 6 months later, you can't find that note because you are looking in the wrong room of the palace you built. This is the folder trap. It is based on the arrogant assumption that you can predict the future shape of your knowledge before you have even learned it. You cannot. Real knowledge is messy, organic, and unpredictable. It doesn't fit into boxes. It flows across boundaries. In this chapter, we are going to burn down the palace. We are going to stop obsessing over where a note belongs and start trusting a system that organizes itself. We are going to replace rigid architecture with something far more powerful: emergent structure. The tyranny of the file cabinet. The folder metaphor is a relic of the physical world. In a physical office, a piece of paper can only be in one file cabinet at a time. If you put the invoice in the 2023 folder, it cannot also be in the Client X folder unless you make a photocopy. This limitation forced us to create rigid hierarchies just to find things. But your brain doesn't work like a file cabinet. It works like a city. In a city, a coffee shop isn't just in a building. It is at a specific address. It is next to the bank. It is down the street from the park. It is part of the downtown district, but it is also part of the hipster scene. It has multiple identities and multiple ways to get there. When you force your digital notes into a single folder path, you are stripping them of their multi-dimensional nature. You are forcing a complex idea to live in a simple box. This creates massive cognitive load. Every time you create a note, you have to make a high-stakes decision about its location. Every time you want to retrieve it, you have to remember that decision. Emergent structure flips this on its head. Instead of building the roads before you build the buildings, you let the buildings appear first, and then you pave the roads where the traffic actually flows. You stop guessing and start observing. You let the structure grow out of your work rather than forcing your work into a structure. The 3 anchors of chaos. To make this work, you need to let go of place and embrace identity. You need a way to find and connect notes that doesn't depend on which folder they are sitting in. We do this using 3 tools: unique IDs, tags, and hub notes. Think of the unique ID as a permanent license plate for your note. It doesn't matter if the car is in the garage, on the highway, or in a parking lot. The license plate is always the same. In a Zettelkasten, you assign a simple ID to every note, usually a timestamp like 1231027400. This ID allows you to link to the note from anywhere. You can move the note from one folder to another, rename it, or change its tags, but the link remains unbroken because the ID is the anchor. This gives you total freedom. You no longer have to fear losing a note by moving it. Next, you have tags, but you must use them differently than you are used to. Most people use tags like messy folders. They create hundreds of specific tags like Project Alpha Meeting Notes V2. That is useless. In an emergent system, tags are soft labels. They are broad hints. You use a small set of tags like psychology, finance, or writing just to group things loosely. They are not strict categories. They are just buckets to hold the chaos until a pattern emerges. Finally, you have the hub note. This is where the magic happens. A hub note is an emergent landmark. You don't create it up front. You wait. You write 10, 20, 30 notes. Eventually, you notice that 5 of them are about habit formation. You see a cluster forming. That is when you create a new note called habit formation. Write a brief summary of what you know and link those 5 notes to it. The hub note becomes a map for that specific territory. It wasn't planned. It emerged because the density of your thinking required it. The architect's delusion. You are likely fighting a strong internal urge right now. You want to design the system. You want to map out all your categories before you begin. This is the architect's delusion. You believe that if you just have enough folders, you will have control. But more folders do not equal more control. They equal more mazes. A deep folder hierarchy is a place where ideas go to hide. You think you are being organized, but you are actually building a labyrinth that your future self will hate navigating. You must accept that your first structure will be wrong. The topics you care about today will be boring to you next year. The project you think is massive might fizzle out in a week. If you build a rigid structure for these things, you will spend the rest of your life renovating an empty house. True organization is not about cosmetic neatness. You can have a beautifully organized folder structure that contains absolutely no insight. Organization is about retrieval and connection. If you can find an idea in 30 seconds, it is organized. If you can connect it to a new idea, it is organized. It doesn't matter if it is sitting in a folder called Inbox or Archive. The ID and the link are what matter. The bottom-up blueprint. So how do you actually execute this without going crazy? You start minimal. Adopt the 3 to 5 tag rule. Pick 3 to 5 broad areas of your life or work. Maybe they are learning, output, admin, and personal. That is it. When you create a note, apply one of these broad tags. Do not create a new tag for every nuance. If you are writing about a specific marketing strategy, just tag it work or marketing. Don't tag it SEO strategy Q4. Why? Because you don't know if SEO strategy is a permanent interest yet. Wait until you have 10 notes about SEO. Once you see that pattern, then you can create a hub note called SEO strategy and link them all there. The structure follows the volume. Use your IDs to decouple content from location. When you write a note, give it an ID immediately. If your software does this automatically, great. If not, just type the date and time at the top. This is your safety net. It means you can be messy with your file locations. You can dump everything in one giant folder if you want, and the system still works because the links rely on the IDs, not the file path. Let the hubs emerge from the links. This is the discipline. Do not create a hub note for a topic you hope to learn about. Only create a hub note for a topic you have already generated notes for. The hub is a trophy of your thinking, not a wish list. When you see several notes linking to each other or hovering around the same concept, that is the signal. Create the hub, summarize the theme, and list the links. You have just paved a road where the traffic was already flowing. Surfing the chaos. The mindset you need is good enough for now. When you are filing a note, stop asking, is this the perfect place? And start asking, can I find this again? If the note has a clear title, a unique ID, and one broad tag, the answer is yes. You can find it with search. You can find it with a link. That is good enough. Shift your maintenance energy away from the individual notes and toward the hubs. You don't need to tidy up every single atomic note. Who cares if they are a bit messy? Focus on keeping your hub notes clean. Review them. Update the summaries. Reorder the links to tell a story. The hubs are the user interface for your knowledge. If the hubs are clear, the system is clear, even if the underlying database is a jumble. Treat search as a first-class tool, not a failure. In the old days, having to search meant you were disorganized. In the digital age, search is the primary mode of navigation. Rely on it. Combine a broad tag search, e.g. tag marketing, with a keyword search, e.g. viral, to instantly drill down to the relevant notes. You don't need a folder path to get there. The living ecosystem. If you embrace this emergent style, you will stop reorganizing constantly. You will abandon the endless weekend projects of fixing your system. You will realize that the system fixes itself. When your interests shift, say you stop caring about graphic design and start caring about economics, you don't have to delete your design folders or rename everything. You just stop adding to the design hub and start adding to the economics hub. The design hub stays there, preserved in amber, accessible if you ever need it, but it doesn't clutter your active workspace. The economics hub grows naturally, becoming more detailed and structured as you learn more. Your Zettelkasten becomes a self-organizing ecosystem. It breathes. It expands in the areas where you are active and goes dormant in the areas where you are not. It reflects the reality of your mind rather than an artificial chart you drew on a whiteboard. You spend your time thinking and creating, not playing janitor to a pile of files. When the garden gets weedy. Of course, things can go wrong. The most common issue is tag explosion. You get lazy and start making tags for everything. You have tags for blue, important, read later, maybe, idea. Suddenly, your tag list is a mile long and useless. The fix is a monthly cleanup. Look at your tags. If a tag has only one note associated with it, delete the tag. Merge similar tags. If you have finance and money, pick one and kill the other. Keep the list short and high level. Another issue is the junk drawer hub. You create a hub called Project X and just dump 50 links into it with no context. When you open it, it looks like a chaotic list of URLs. A hub needs a narrative. Write a paragraph at the top explaining what the project is. Group the links under headings. If the hub gets too big, split it into Project X Research and Project X Drafts. Finally, you might feel the fear of moving or renaming notes. You worry that if you change a title, you will break a link. This is why we use IDs. Trust the ID. If your software supports it, trust the software to update the links. But even if it doesn't, the ID is your safety line. You can rename a file from Draft 1 to Final Essay, and as long as the ID inside remains the same, you can verify it's the right note. You have freed yourself from the tyranny of folders. You have learned to let structure emerge from the chaos, building maps only when the territory is discovered. You have a system that is flexible, resilient, and scalable. But a system that sits idle is just a digital paperweight. A Zettelkasten is a machine, and machines need fuel. You can have the most beautiful emergent structure in the world, but if you don't have a reliable way to feed it new information and process that information into the network, it will rust. You need a rhythm. You need a way to capture the noise of the world and refine it into signal without getting overwhelmed. You need to stop waiting for free time to do your note-taking and start integrating it into the cracks of your busy life. It is time to build the pipeline that keeps the engine running. It is time to master the flow. Chapter 6, Capture Flow. You have built the machine. Over the last few chapters, you have constructed a magnificent infrastructure. You understand the power of atomic notes. You have grasped the gravity of permanent notes, and you have learned to weave them together with smart links and emergent structure. You have a Ferrari sitting in your driveway. It is beautiful. It is engineered for speed. It is perfect. But it has no gas. A Zettelkasten without a workflow is just a digital statue. It looks impressive, but it doesn't go anywhere. The most common tragedy in knowledge management is the person who spends weeks designing the perfect system, only to abandon it a month later because they never figured out how to fit it into their actual life. They treat note-taking as a special event, something they do only when the stars align and they have 4 hours of uninterrupted silence. That is not how life works. Life is noisy. Life is messy. Ideas don't arrive on schedule. They arrive when you are running to a meeting or stuck in traffic or in the middle of a conversation. If your system requires perfect conditions to function, it will fail. This chapter is about fuel. It's about building a relentless, low-friction pipeline that takes the raw chaos of your daily experience and refines it into high-octane knowledge. We are going to stop treating note-taking as a chore and start treating it as a flow. We are going to build the capture pipeline. The 3-stage refinery. To understand why your previous attempts at note-taking failed, look at the difference between a hoarder and a refinery. A hoarder grabs everything and throws it in a pile. A refinery takes raw material and moves it through distinct stages of processing, adding value at every step. Your capture flow must follow a specific 3-stage progression: fleeting notes, atomic notes, and permanent notes. The first stage is the fleeting note. This is the raw ore. These are the scribbles you make in a meeting, the voice memo you record while walking, or the quick screenshot you take of a website. Fleeting notes are messy. They are incomplete. They are often unintelligible to anyone but you, and that is perfectly fine. Their only job is to catch the idea before it flies away. They are temporary holding tanks. The second stage is the atomic note. This is where you wash the ore. You take that messy scribble and you rewrite it. You clarify it. You turn Project X deadline bad into a clear statement. The deadline for Project X is unrealistic because of the dependency on the legal team. You strip away the noise and leave only the signal. The third stage is the permanent note. This is the refined steel. You take the atomic note and you integrate it into your system. You add your own insight, you link it to other ideas, and you give it a home in your network. Most people fail because they try to do all three steps at once. They try to write a perfect, linked, permanent note in the middle of a fast-paced meeting. That is impossible. You cannot be a miner and a goldsmith at the same time. You need to separate the tasks. You need a pipeline. The procrastination traps. Before we design your routine, we have to disarm the traps that are waiting for you. These are the myths that sound like productivity, but are actually procrastination in disguise. The first trap is the perfect app myth. You tell yourself you can't start capturing until you find the tool that syncs perfectly across all devices, makes coffee, and reads your mind. You spend hours watching reviews of note-taking apps instead of taking notes. Let me be clear, the tool does not matter. A pocket notebook and a pen are a valid capture system. The default Notes app on your phone is a valid capture system. The best tool is the one that is already in your hand. The second trap is the immediate processing myth. You believe that if you don't process a note the second you write it, you are failing. This leads to burnout. You cannot stop your life every 10 minutes to engage in deep philosophical reflection. It is okay to have a backlog of fleeting notes as long as you have a scheduled time to clear it. The third trap is the big insight myth. You think you should only capture profound, earth-shattering ideas, so you let the small questions and the minor observations slip by. But a Zettelkasten is built on the accumulation of small truths. A question you have about a workflow, a frustration with a piece of software, a phrase you liked in a podcast. These are the seeds. If you wait for lightning to strike, you will starve your system. Building your pipeline. Now let's build your actual workflow. We're going to divide this into two distinct modes: capture, fast, and process, slow. Your capture habit needs to be frictionless. You need to choose one or two inboxes. Maybe it's a physical notebook for your desk and a specific app for your phone. That is it. Do not have 10 different places where notes go to die. Set a simple rule for yourself. If it might matter later, capture it in under 30 seconds. Do not worry about grammar. Do not worry about tags. Just get it out of your head and into the inbox. If you are reading a book, mark the page or highlight the text and move on. Do not stop to rewrite it yet. Maintain your momentum. Your processing habit is where the real work happens. You need to schedule a refinery session. For most people, a daily micro-session works best. Take 15 minutes at the end of the day or the start of the next morning. Open your inbox. Look at your fleeting notes. For each note, ask, is this still interesting? If the answer is no, delete it. Be ruthless. If the answer is yes, convert it into an atomic note. Rewrite it in your own words. Give it a clear title. Then, once a week, schedule a promotion session. This is a deeper block of time, maybe an hour. This is where you look at your new atomic notes and decide which ones deserve to become permanent notes. This is where you do the heavy lifting of linking and connecting. By separating these modes, you remove the pressure. You don't have to be smart when you're capturing, you just have to be quick. You don't have to be quick when you are processing, you just have to be thoughtful. Lubricating the gears. To keep this machine running, you need to lower the barrier to entry. Use the one-note minimum rule. On your worst, busiest, most exhausted days, commit to processing just one note. Just one. It takes 2 minutes. This isn't about volume, it's about identity. It proves to yourself that you are the kind of person who maintains their system. Often, once you process one, you will find the energy to do 3 or 4. But if you do 0, the rust starts to form. Use context triggers to automate the habit. If you always have coffee in the morning, make that your processing time. No coffee until I clear 3 fleeting notes. If you commute, use that time to capture questions. Piggyback the new habit onto an old one. Batch your work. Do not switch back and forth between capturing and processing. It drains your mental battery. Stay in capture mode while you are consuming information. Stay in process mode when you are at your desk. Protect the boundaries between these states. Living in the flow. When you get this right, the shift in your psychology is profound. You move from the anxiety of the hoarder to the confidence of the curator. In the good outcome, you achieve consistent light capture. You stop having those "I had a great idea, but I forgot it" moments. You trust that if you write it down, it will be waiting for you. You process your notes a few times a week, and your system slowly fills with useful material. In the excellent outcome, you have a smooth, reliable pipeline. You rarely face huge backlogs because you are constantly refining the ore. You start to see your Zettelkasten not as a chore, but as a partner. You feed it, and it feeds you. In the best outcome, capture flow becomes a lifestyle. You don't even think about it anymore. You instinctively pull out your phone when you hear a good point. You instinctively sit down for 10 minutes to clarify your thinking before you start work. You live in a state of calm productivity because you know that your thinking is safe. You have externalized the burden of memory. Unclogging the pipes. Even the best systems get clogged. You will have a busy week. You will get sick. You will go on vacation. You will come back to a mountain of unprocessed notes, and you will feel the urge to burn it all down and start over. Do not do that. If you have a massive backlog, declare note bankruptcy. Take all those old, unprocessed notes and move them into an archive folder called Old Backlog. Start fresh from today. Do not let the guilt of the past kill the potential of the future. If there was something truly life-changing in that pile, it will come back to you. If not, let it go. Another common clog is the graveyard of trivia. You start capturing everything: grocery lists, random facts, gossip. Your system fills with noise. To fix this, you need to sharpen your filter. Before you capture, ask, will this help me think, decide, or create better? If the answer is no, let it pass. Your Zettelkasten is for knowledge, not for remembering to buy socks. Finally, watch out for the capture-only trap. This is where you keep adding fleeting notes but never process them. This is dangerous because it feels like work, but it is actually hoarding. If you find yourself doing this, stop capturing. Force yourself to stop consuming new information until you have processed what you already have. You cannot eat more if you haven't digested what is in your mouth. You have built the structure. You have established the flow. You have a system that captures the sparks of your daily life and fans them into a flame. Your notes are no longer scattered debris. They are a steady stream of fuel entering your engine. But fuel alone does not drive the car. You don't build a Zettelkasten just to have a neat collection of notes. You build it to produce. You build it to solve problems, to write books, to launch projects, to change your career. Now that you have this reservoir of intelligence, how do you actually use it? How do you turn a cluster of notes into a finished article or a brilliant strategy? How do you stop preparing and start shipping? It is time to turn the key and ignite the engine. Chapter 7, Idea Engine. The blinking cursor is mocking you. You know the feeling. You sit down to write an article, a report, or a script. You have a deadline. You have a coffee. You have the best intentions. But the screen is white, the cursor is pulsing, and your mind is completely empty. You feel a rising panic. You know you have read books on this topic. You know you have listened to podcasts. You know you have learned this. So why can't you produce anything? Why does every sentence feel like pulling teeth? This is the nightmare of the blank page. It is the defining struggle of the knowledge worker. We are paid to think, but our thinking tools often fail us exactly when we need them most. You stare at the screen, trying to summon genius from the ether, hoping for a lightning bolt of inspiration that rarely comes. But what if I told you that the blank page is optional? What if you never had to start from scratch again? You have spent the last 6 chapters building a machine. You have captured atomic notes. You have distilled permanent insights. You have linked them into a web. Up until now, you might have felt like a collector, a person carefully organizing a library. But a library is a quiet place where ideas sit on shelves. We are not building a library. We are building a factory. In this chapter, we flip the switch. We stop feeding the system and let the system start feeding us. We transform your Zettelkasten from a passive archive into an aggressive, generative partner. We turn the ignition on the idea engine. The death of the blank page. The shift from collector to creator is the most important psychological leap you will make in this entire process. Most people treat their notes like trophies. They look at their note count, 500 notes, 1,000 notes, and feel a sense of pride. But a note that sits in a database and never turns into output is a waste of digital space. The goal of the Zettelkasten is not to have beautiful notes. The goal is to produce work. When you treat your system as an idea engine, you stop identifying as a note taker. You become an idea producer. You realize that the real value of your system isn't in what you put in, but in what you can pull out. Imagine facing a complex problem at work. Instead of feeling the crushing weight of having to solve it with your raw brainpower, you turn to your system. You type in a few keywords. Suddenly, you aren't alone. You are looking at 20 different notes collected over 3 years that tackle this exact problem from different angles. You see a quote from a book you read in 2021 connected to a podcast insight from last week. You see a pattern. The solution isn't something you have to invent. It is something you have to assemble. This is how you turn complexity into clarity. You break big, scary questions down into smaller components that your notes already address. You walk into meetings not with vague opinions, but with a fortress of evidence. You become the person who always has a perspective, not because you are smarter, but because you have a second brain that never sleeps and never forgets. You build a reputation for insight because while everyone else is trying to think in the moment, you are leveraging years of thinking you have already done. Listening to the network. So how does this engine actually work? It runs on the fuel of clusters. As you link notes over time, you will notice something strange. Certain areas of your network will become dense. You will have a hub note about habit formation that links to 15 other notes. You will have a cluster of ideas revolving around the psychology of pricing. These clusters are not just categories, they are embryos. They are articles, essays, and project pitches waiting to be born. When you want to create, you don't stare at a blank page. You surf your notes. You follow the links from one idea to another. You go on a note tour. You might start looking at a note about biology, follow a link to a note about system design, and end up at a note about corporate management. Suddenly, you see the connection. You see how the biological principle of homeostasis explains why your company is resisting change. That is the spark. That is the idea engine firing. You can then turn these clusters into outlines instantly. You don't have to write an outline from scratch. You simply drag the relevant notes into a document. You rearrange them. You put the problem statement first, the supporting evidence second, and the solution third. You look at the list. You realize you have 80% of your first draft already written. The notes are the paragraphs. Your job is no longer to write. Your job is to edit. You are just smoothing the edges between thoughts you have already had. The lie of the lonely genius. There is a myth that holds us back. It is the myth of the lonely genius. We believe that great ideas come from inside our heads, emerging from a magical void of pure originality. We think that using notes is cheating or lazy. We think that if we look at our notes, we aren't being creative. This is a lie. Originality does not mean creating something out of nothing. Originality is synthesis. It is the act of combining existing ideas in new ways. Every great book, every scientific breakthrough, every innovative business strategy is a recombination of things that came before. When you use your Zettelkasten to generate ideas, you are not cheating. You are doing exactly what the human brain does, but better. Your brain is an association machine, but it is limited by short-term memory and bias. Your system is an association machine with infinite memory and no bias. By consciously combining and contrasting note clusters, you are engineering serendipity. You are forcing ideas to collide. You are taking a concept from architecture and smashing it against a concept from music to see what happens. This is not laziness. It is leverage. It is how you punch above your intellectual weight class. It is how you produce work that feels deep and layered, because it is built on a foundation of hundreds of hours of prior thought. The assembly line method. Let's get practical. How do you actually drive this car? You use a simple assembly line process. It starts with a question. Never start with, I want to write something. Start with, what am I trying to solve? Or, what is the question I want to answer? Write that question down. That is your North Star. Next, you pull. You go into your system and you search. You look at your tags. You look at your hub notes. You follow the link trails. You are looking for anything that relates to your question. Do not filter too heavily yet. If a note seems relevant, pull it into a temporary draft space or a new document. Grab the permanent notes, the quotes, the half-baked ideas. Now, you have a pile of puzzle pieces. The third step is to assemble. Look at your pile. Group them. You will see that 3 notes are about the cause of the problem. Group them together. 2 notes are about a potential solution. Group them. 1 note is a perfect opening story. Put it at the top. Suddenly you have a structure. You have a logical flow. You haven't written a single new sentence yet, but you have an argument. The final step is to refine. You read through your assembly. It will feel choppy. It will feel like a list of notes. This is where you come in. You write the connective tissue. You write the transitions. You smooth the jump from note A to note B. You add an intro and a conclusion. You fill in the gaps where you realize an explanation is missing. Notice what just happened. You didn't write a document in the traditional sense. You assembled one. You bypassed the blank page entirely. You moved from a question to a finished draft without ever facing the terror of having nothing to say. Colliding worlds. Once you master the basic assembly line, you can start doing the advanced maneuvers. You can start using your engine to generate ideas that no one else could possibly come up with. Try the distant cluster technique. Pick 2 hub notes that seem to have nothing to do with each other. For example, take 19th century poetry and modern software development. Ask yourself, how do these intersect? At first, your brain will resist. It will say there is no connection, but force it. Look at the notes. Maybe you find a note in the poetry cluster about the structure of a sonnet, and a note in the software cluster about clean code constraints. Suddenly, you have an angle. Why great code needs constraints like a sonnet? That is an original idea. That is a unique angle, and you didn't find it by staring at the wall. You found it by crashing 2 parts of your system together. You can also use note tours to spark fresh thinking. Set a timer for 10 minutes. Start at a random note. Follow the links. Just wander. See where the path takes you. You might start on a note about coffee and end up on a note about global trade economics. Along the way, you might find a forgotten note that solves a problem you are stuck on at work. This is structured wandering. It allows you to utilize the latent intelligence of your system. The unfair advantage. If you commit to using your Zettelkasten as an idea engine, the results will change your career. In the good outcome, you will use your notes to write the occasional article or email. You will notice that it is easier. You will feel less fear before big tasks. You will realize that you are never starting from zero. In the excellent outcome, regular output becomes your norm. You stop being the person who is working on a project and become the person who ships projects. You produce more work in less time. Your colleagues will wonder how you produce such well-researched reports so quickly. They won't know you have been researching them for 2 years, 1 note at a time. In the best outcome, you possess a true idea engine. Your system continuously feeds you. You wake up, look at your notes, and see 3 new article ideas that formed overnight because of the links you made yesterday. Your work stands out for its clarity and depth. You become known for a distinctive body of work that is uniquely yours because no one else has your specific network of notes. Don't build a Frankenstein. However, you must be careful. There are ways to stall the engine. The most common mistake is never using the notes to create. You keep feeding the machine, but you never turn it on. You keep collecting, telling yourself you are building an asset, but an asset that produces no yield is a liability. You must make pull notes first, a mandatory step in your workflow. Before you write an email, check your notes. Before you plan a meeting, check your notes. Force the habit. Another pitfall is the Frankenstein draft. This happens when you assemble notes but fail to refine them. You paste 5 notes together and hit send. The result is disjointed and robotic. It reads like a ransom note made of cut-out magazine letters. You must add your voice. You must smooth the seams. The notes are the bricks, but your voice is the mortar. Without the mortar, the wall falls down. Finally, do not get overwhelmed by the volume. When you search for a topic, you might find 50 notes. You might freeze. The fix is to narrow your question. Don't search for marketing. Search for, how does scarcity affect marketing conversion? The specific question filters the noise and leaves only the signal. You have now seen the summit. You understand how a Zettelkasten transforms from a simple storage box into a generative engine of creativity. You see the potential for a life where writer's block is a memory and output is effortless. But I have to warn you, you are driving a high-performance vehicle now. And high-performance vehicles are sensitive. They require maintenance. They require the right conditions. There is a specific set of psychological traps that lie in wait for you after the initial excitement wears off. There are days when the system will feel heavy. There are moments when you will want to burn it all down and switch to a new app because you saw a shiny advertisement. There is a silent entropy that attacks all systems, no matter how well designed. If you do not know how to handle these moments, your idea engine will stall. It will rust, and eventually it will be just another abandoned project in the graveyard of your good intentions. You need to know how to crash-proof your second brain. You need to know the pitfalls before you fall into them. Chapter 8, System Pitfalls. You are currently riding a high. You have built the structure, established the flow, and turned on the idea engine. You feel unstoppable. You look at your Zettelkasten and see a pristine, functioning machine that is going to solve all your intellectual problems forever. But I am here to tell you the truth. The crash is coming. It happens to everyone. It usually hits around day 30 or day 60. Life will get busy. You will get sick, or you will have a crisis at work, or you will simply get tired. You will miss a day of capturing. Then you will miss a week of processing. You will open your note-taking app, see a pile of unorganized chaos, feel a pang of guilt, and close it immediately. You will tell yourself you will fix it this weekend, but the weekend will come and go. Slowly, the silence will grow, the dust will settle, and your beautiful second brain will become a digital ghost town. This is the boom and bust cycle of productivity. We treat systems like fragile crystal vases, beautiful, perfect, and utterly destroyed by the slightest bump. But you cannot build a lifelong knowledge base on a system that requires you to be perfect. You are human. You are inconsistent. You are prone to distraction. This chapter is your safety net. We are going to catalog the specific ways your Zettelkasten will try to fail, and we are going to give you the tools to fix it. We are going to shift your mindset from building a perfect system to building an anti-fragile one, a system that can take a punch and keep working. The 3 horsemen of system death. To survive, you must first recognize the threats. There are 3 specific behaviors that silently kill Zettelkasten systems. They don't look like failures at first. They often look like work, but they are parasites that drain the life out of your network. The first horseman is the hoarder. This is the most common failure mode. You get addicted to the capture phase. You save every article, every tweet, every PDF. You feel productive because your note count is going up. But you aren't thinking. You are just moving files around. You are over-collecting and under-processing. Your system becomes a landfill of other people's thoughts, burying your own insights under a mountain of noise. The warning sign here is a feeling of heaviness. If you feel exhausted just looking at your inbox, you are hoarding. The second horseman is the silo. You are writing notes, maybe even good ones, but you are not linking them. You are treating your Zettelkasten like a standard notebook. You have hundreds of orphan notes that have no connection to anything else. This destroys the network effect. If you don't link, you don't get the compound interest of knowledge. The warning sign here is that you never stumble upon old ideas. Your system feels static, like a box of rocks, rather than a living web. The third horseman is the tourist. This is the person who is addicted to app hopping. You hit a friction point in your current workflow. Maybe it's a bit slow, or the font isn't pretty enough, and instead of fixing the workflow, you switch apps. You spend 3 days migrating your data to the newest, trendiest tool. You feel a rush of dopamine because the new interface is clean and empty. But you haven't solved the problem. You have just moved your bad habits to a new house. The warning sign here is that you know more about the features of 5 different apps than you do about the topic you are supposed to be researching. The seduction of the reset button. When these problems pile up, you will feel a powerful, almost irresistible urge to burn it all down. You will look at your messy tags, your inconsistent IDs, and your backlog of fleeting notes, and you will think, I should just start over. I'll archive this whole folder and start fresh. This time, I'll do it right. This is a lie. The fresh start is a trap. When you wipe the slate clean, you are not just deleting clutter, you are deleting your thinking. You are throwing away the friction that leads to insight. A Zettelkasten is supposed to be messy in places. It is supposed to have rough edges. That mess is evidence of work. You must learn to refactor, not reset. In software engineering, refactoring means cleaning up the code without changing what it does. You fix the structure, but you keep the function. If your tags are messy, spend 20 minutes merging them. If your hub notes are chaotic, rewrite the summary, but do not delete your history. The goal is not a pristine system. The goal is a useful one. This stems from the perfectionist myth that you must do it right or not at all. Perfectionism is just procrastination in a tuxedo. It gives you a noble excuse to quit. You must embrace the philosophy of the good enough system. A messy system that you use every day is infinitely better than a perfect system that you abandoned 3 months ago. The mechanic's mindset. So, how do you keep the machine running when the check engine light comes on? You stop acting like an architect and start acting like a mechanic. You need a maintenance routine. You need a system health checklist. This isn't a complex audit, it's a quick glance under the hood. Ask yourself 3 questions. Are you creating atomic notes, or are you slipping back into long dumps of text? Are you promoting notes to permanent status, or are they rotting in the inbox? Are you linking new notes to old ones? If the answer to any of these is no, you don't need to panic. You just need a tune-up. Schedule a monthly Tidy and Tune session. Put it on your calendar. This is not a time for writing, it is a time for cleaning. Go through your tags. Do you have psychology, psych, and psychological? Merge them. Look at your hub notes. Are they up to date? Prune the dead branches. This monthly ritual prevents the entropy from reaching a critical mass. It keeps the weeds from taking over the garden. You also need to set strict boundaries around your tools. Commit to a monogamous relationship with your current app for at least 90 days. No looking at other apps. No reading reviews of new features. No just trying it out. When you feel friction, force yourself to solve it within the constraints of your current tool. This forces you to improve your process rather than your software. Surviving the storm. The true test of your system is not how it performs on a quiet Sunday morning. The test is how it performs during your worst week of the year. When life explodes, when you have a deadline, a family crisis, or an illness, your high-maintenance routines will collapse. If your system requires an hour of processing a day, you will quit. You need a minimal viable system, MVS mode. In MVS mode, you stop trying to be perfect. You stop trying to clear the inbox. You focus on one thing, capture. Just keep catching the ideas. Let them pile up. It's okay. The Zettelkasten can wait. The goal in a storm is simply not to lose the signal. When the storm passes, do not try to process the entire backlog in one heroic session. You will burn out. Instead, use the tiny repairs method. Fix one small thing a day. Process 3 notes. Link 1 orphan. slowly, gently bring the system back online. This resilience is what separates the amateurs from the pros. The amateur quits when they fall behind. The pro knows that falling behind is part of the cycle and simply begins again. Debugging your brain. Sometimes the problem isn't the system, it's you. You need to debug your own psychology. If you find yourself over-collecting, it is likely because you are using collection as a shield against the fear of creation. You are reading because you are afraid to write. The fix is to set a quota. I cannot read a new article until I have created one permanent note from the last one. Force the output. If you are underlinking, it is likely because you are rushing. You are treating the note as a task to be checked off rather than a thought to be explored. The fix is to slow down. Add a step to your checklist. Connect to one old idea. Make it a game. Find the most unlikely connection you can. If you are app hopping, it is because you are seeking novelty. You are bored. The fix is to redirect that need for novelty into the content, not the container. If you are bored, explore a new topic in your Zettelkasten. Dive into a new cluster. Change the subject, not the software. The anti-fragile archive. If you follow these principles, you will achieve something rare. You will build a system that gets stronger with time, not weaker. In the good outcome, you will notice problems early. You will feel the resistance building, and instead of ignoring it, you will diagnose it. Ah, I'm hoarding again. You will make the adjustment before the system collapses. In the excellent outcome, you will bounce back quickly. You will have a month where you don't touch your notes, and instead of feeling shame, you will simply pick up where you left off. You will trust that the system is patient. It will wait for you. In the best outcome, your system becomes truly anti-fragile. It survives your worst days. It survives your busy seasons. It survives your changing interests. It becomes a long-term relationship, a constant companion that grows alongside you. You stop worrying about breaking it because you know how to fix it. This resilience is crucial because of what we are building toward. We are not just trying to be more organized for next week's meeting. We are not just trying to pass a class or finish a project. We are playing a much longer game. You have built the engine. You have learned how to drive it. You have learned how to repair it when it breaks. Now it is time to look at the road ahead. It is time to understand what happens when you run this machine, not for a month, but for a decade. It is time to talk about the ultimate payoff, the compounding effect that transforms a collection of notes into a force that changes the trajectory of your life. Chapter 9, Lifetime Leverage. Imagine two versions of your life 10 years from now. In the first version, you are exactly who you are today, just older. You have consumed thousands of hours of content. You have read hundreds of books. You have sat through countless meetings. But when you try to recall a specific insight from a decade ago, it is gone. You are working just as hard as you are now, starting every project from a blank page, relying on your tired biological memory to hold it all together. You feel a vague sense of loss, a haunting suspicion that you have forgotten more wisdom than most people will ever learn. Now imagine the second version. In this reality, you have built a structure. Every time you had a valuable thought, you captured it. Every time you learned a hard lesson, you distilled it. Every time you saw a connection, you linked it. You are walking around with a digital extension of your mind that contains 10 years of compounded wisdom. When you face a problem, you don't just have your current brain power, you have the leverage of your past self's best thinking. You are calmer, you are sharper, you are prolific. This is not a fantasy. This is the difference between living with a leaky bucket and living with a reservoir. This is the power of lifetime leverage. We have spent this book building a machine. We moved from the anxiety of note chaos to the precision of atomic notes. We learned to distill the noise into permanent notes and weave them together with smart links. We abandoned the rigid prisons of folders for the organic growth of emergent structure. We built a capture flow to fuel the engine and learned to use the system as an idea engine to drive our work. We even crash-proofed the vehicle against the inevitable pitfalls of human psychology. But a machine is useless if you don't understand what it is truly for. You didn't build this just to be organized. You built this to change the trajectory of your life. The compound interest of thought. You understand compound interest in finance. You know that a small sum invested consistently over time grows into a fortune. Knowledge works exactly the same way, but most people treat it like cash under the mattress. They learn something, and then they let it rot. Your Zettelkasten is your investment portfolio. Every atomic note is a deposit. At first, the account looks small. You might feel foolish spending time clarifying a single idea when you could be doing real work. But then, the curve starts to bend. The leverage comes from the fact that you never have to solve the same problem twice. Most people spend their lives in a loop, relearning the same lessons, researching the same topics, and making the same mistakes. With a Zettelkasten, you solve the problem once, you capture the solution, and you move on. The next time you encounter that issue, you don't start from zero, you start from the solution. This creates a massive gap between you and your peers. While they are struggling to remember what was discussed in the meeting 3 months ago, you are pulling up a synthesized history of the entire project. While they are staring at a blank screen trying to write a report, you are assembling a draft from notes you wrote over the last year. You are playing a different game. You are playing with a stacked deck, and you are the one who stacked it. The quiet confidence of the archive. There is a specific feeling that comes when you trust your system. It is a physical sensation of lightness. Right now, you are likely carrying a massive cognitive load. You are trying to remember tasks, ideas, promises, and facts. Your brain is burning energy just trying not to drop the ball. When you externalize that load into a trusted system, that energy is freed. You walk into complex situations with a sense of calm curiosity. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room because you have the best archive. You don't have to fear big, hairy challenges because you know you can break them down into atomic units. You see evidence of your own growth. You can look back at a note from 2 years ago and see how your thinking has evolved. You are not stagnant. You are building a body of work that proves, day by day, that you are becoming a deeper thinker. This confidence bleeds into your work and study. Exams become less terrifying because you aren't cramming. You are reviewing a network you built yourself. Presentations become easier because you aren't scripting them from scratch. You are following the trails of your own arguments. You bring depth to every role you inhabit because you aren't just reacting to the moment. You are responding with the weight of your accumulated knowledge. The ripple effect on relationships. It might seem strange to talk about relationships in a book about note-taking, but this system impacts how you connect with people. When your mind is cluttered and anxious, you cannot listen. You are too busy trying to hold on to your own thoughts to truly hear someone else. But when you know your system will catch everything that matters, you can be fully present. You can offload the mental clutter and actually hear what is being said. You become the person who remembers. You capture the details of people's lives, their goals, their struggles, the names of their children. You review these notes before you meet them. You show up prepared. This builds trust faster than almost anything else. It shows people that they matter enough to be remembered. You also become a better collaborator. In team settings, most people share vague impressions and half-formed opinions. You share structured ideas. You bring frameworks. You help the team think more clearly because you have already done the thinking on paper. You become the anchor in the storm of group confusion. Resurrecting the graveyard of dreams. We all have a graveyard of abandoned projects. The novel you started and quit, the business idea you sketched out and lost, the thesis you couldn't wrangle. We tell ourselves we quit because we lost interest, but usually we quit because the complexity became unmanageable. Your Zettelkasten is a resurrection machine. It allows you to return to old ideas and give them new life. Because your notes are modular and linked, a project you abandoned 3 years ago isn't dead, it's just dormant. You can link it to a new idea you had today, and suddenly, the project unlocks. you can tackle challenges that used to scare you. Writing a book seems impossible when you look at it as a 60,000-word task, but writing one atomic note is easy. If you write 3 notes a day, you have a book in a year. The system allows you to bypass the intimidation of the big project and focus on the manageable unit of the small note. You start to build a recognizable body of work. You notice patterns in your thinking that you didn't know were there. You realize you have been writing about the same 3 themes for years. These themes become your signature. They become the blog posts, the videos, or the strategies that define your career. You stop being a consumer of other people's content and start being a prolific creator of your own. The flywheel of genius. The most beautiful thing about this system is that it gets easier the longer you use it. In the beginning, it is work. You are pushing a heavy flywheel. You have to build the habits, learn the tools, and populate the empty void. But eventually, the flywheel starts to spin on its own. Your habits run on autopilot. Capture, processing, and linking become as natural as breathing. You stop trying to do Zettelkasten and just live it. Your attention is freed for the things that actually matter: creativity, connection, and decision-making. And the output quality rises while the effort drops. This is the magic of the network effect. When you have 100 notes, adding 1 new note creates a few connections. When you have 1,000 notes, adding 1 new note might create 10 connections. The more you know, the easier it is to learn new things because you have more hooks to hang the new information on. You enjoy higher leverage from every hour you spend learning. You're no longer running on a treadmill, you are building a skyscraper. The 0-hour protocol. We are at the end of the theory. Now we must cross the bridge to action. You can close this book and go back to your old life, or you can take the first step toward your new identity. Here is your immediate battle plan. First, commit to a simple setup. Do not spend a week researching apps. Pick 1 tool today. Commit to it for 30 days. Create a folder for your inbox. Create a folder for your permanent notes. Create a few broad tags like learning, work, and life. That is it. You are ready. Second, create your first 3 atomic notes right now, not tomorrow, now. Take 3 ideas from this book that resonated with you. Write them in your own words. Give them a title. Link them together. Do not overthink it. Prove to yourself that you can do it. Third, schedule your next session. Open your calendar. Find a 15-minute slot within the next 24 hours. Label it Zettelkasten Processing. Treat this appointment with the same respect you would give a meeting with a CEO. This is a meeting with your future self. Do not cancel it. The final decision. You are standing at a threshold. Behind you is the old you. The old you lets ideas slip through their fingers like water. The old you drowns in information but starves for wisdom. The old you starts projects with enthusiasm and abandons them in frustration. The old you is a leaky bucket. In front of you is the new you. The new you is a builder. The new you captures the sparks of insight and fans them into flames. The new you directs the flow of information into a structure that grows stronger every day. The new you shows up tomorrow and the day after and the day after that. Embrace this identity. Take pride in the quiet, invisible discipline of building your second brain. No one will see the notes you write tomorrow morning. No one will applaud you for linking 2 ideas together, but you will know. You will know that you are casting a vote for the kind of thinker you are becoming. The window of motivation is open right now. You feel the energy, but windows close. Entropy returns. The noise of the world is waiting to rush back in and drown out this clarity. Do not wait. Do not hesitate. Every powerful system in history, every great library, every masterpiece started with a single imperfect step. Write the first note, and then write another. Your future self is waiting for you to begin.